It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is my takeout, my Emil Amok's takeout, my takes on all things considerable. And my, oh my, we have too many considerable things going on now. But this is the way it is, right? This is the way Trump TCBs, right? He takes care of business in the Trump chaotic business fashion, where everything's happening at once, and it's hard to deploy a way to get at the man who is the most powerful when he sprays you with all this, and then you say, well, I'm going to play by the rules. The rule of law says I can file a lawsuit. You can't do that. In the meantime, he gets away with whatever he wants, and California has filed a lawsuit now to stop Donald Trump, but he's already done it. But thank goodness, Attorney General Rob Bonta has filed a suit. Thank goodness, Gavin Newsom is, he's caught a lot of flack for engaging with the right, young men, podcasts, trying to say, look, Democrats aren't all that bad. We're reaching out. California's not all that bad. But Donald Trump likes to use California as a scapegoat. He likes to use California more as an example. He uses immigrants as a scapegoat. The immigrants are the scapegoat for everything. And you look at the official White House press today, they're bragging about, oh, look, we had all these raids, ICE raids, and look at all the criminals we got. They issued about like a list of 8. One of them was a Filipino who, a criminal, but they got 8 criminals, but out of a sweep of what, 1,000 or more just in LA. And the net is 8, according to a White House dispatch, the press release that I get, because I want to hear what the White House has to say. And they're bragging about these 8 criminals, but look at the turmoil it's cost to innocent people, innocent immigrants who just want to make a life. This is the tactic of ICE to go after immigrants who may be here without papers. Are they illegal? No, they're not illegal. I mean, no person is illegal. They do illegal acts, maybe. The more criminal, the better. But in these civil cases of immigration, they're paying taxes, they're working, they're part of our community. I refer you to the story about Carol in Kennett, Missouri. New York Times did a front page piece on her. We talked about it. And it's in Red State, Missouri. And people are scratching their heads saying, we like Carol. We love Carol. She's part of the community. She's raising her family. And as is the MO these days, Carol went to an immigration appointment that she had. Kennett, Missouri. She went to St. Louis, 3 hours away. She was arrested, held for deportation. This is the deception, the perfidy. That's what it's called. Like Funston, nabbing Aguinaldo, Philippines, during the Philippine-American War. I mean, all this stuff is happened in history before. Perfidy, lying, deception, and now they're using it now in the Trump administration because they know that when you say illegal immigrant, it gets you all emotional and it'll make you want to do anything that Trump wants to do. So watch out when he says, hey, illegal immigrants, big, beautiful bill. Hey, let's separate the two. There's part of the big, beautiful bill that's not so big, or that's big but not so beautiful. It's beautiful and ugly. It's bugly. Shouldn't be passed. Not in the way it is. Not when it's going to raise the national debt by trillions of dollars, by almost $3 trillion, to a point where we're paying more in interest than we should. So But Trump is trying to get that big, beautiful bill in. That's the motivator. And he knows that the tool that he uses that makes a difference is to say, hey, illegal immigrants. And then everyone goes crazy. Like, oh, we don't want them. The protesters yesterday in LA made a mistake by flying flags, even though the flags are indicative of a cultural alliance, not necessarily like an allegiance to the governments of Mexico or wherever, Iran, or they're waving these flags. Cultural awareness, just like when you go to a parade, the Columbus Day parade, people have Italian flags. But Trump says, oh, that's a sign of they're invaders. Invaders here from Mexico. Actually, that was J.D. Vance who said, oh, they're invaders. Got to watch out for those invaders. So that happened over the weekend. These protests that were inflamed by Trump calling out the National Guard, 2,000 National Guard troops. And, LA police, they were able to handle what's going on. I mean, this was an example of peaceful demonstrations turned ugly when you induce fear and induce a kind of, the reaction when the government overreacts and sends National Guard troops. For what reason? And then they say, well, there needs to be coordination. No, there does not need to be coordination. The feds do their thing, federal law, protect federal property. The state and local law enforcement do their thing. That's the whole idea of sanctuary cities. Stay in your lane. But Trump couldn't do that. He couldn't wait for the Governor Newsom. He just went ahead and did it, which is a violation of sovereignty, of states' rights. States' rights mean something to Donald Trump when he wants states' rights. And when it doesn't suit him, then he'll take the power. Abortion. When it comes to states' rights, states can do it all, unless the feds want to do it all. And the feds want to do it all here. Hey, when it comes to immigration, that's a federal law. And that's what the feds can do. But they can't come into a protest and start whacking things. And so it was, Donald Trump knew it was going to be complicated because people don't know how and when to stay in their lanes. So we had what we had yesterday. I think 5 police were hurt, 40 some were arrested. Didn't have to be that way. But when Donald Trump called in 2,000 National Guard troops, that's when it got that way. I said it was like showing up to a fire, to the LA fires, with gasoline and not water. And here Trump showed off his power. He wanted to induce fear. I guess he's a little upset that he was called Taco Trump, because Trump always chickens out. Because now he wants to show, hey, I'm not chickening out. Trump also always chickens out, not when it comes to ICE raids. So he's the strong man of the moment. He's flexing. And then yesterday, the idea was floated. Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense head, said, hey, we got troops at the ready. Now the reports, this hour as I speak, troops are there. Troops are preparing to be deployed. And for what? If you don't need the National Guard, you certainly don't need the Marines in Camp Pendleton. So what we are witnessing is authoritarianism in action, the evolution of authoritarianism in America. Brought to you by one Donald Trump, his strongman moment. He's flexing. It's not a good look. First, he federalized the National Guard. Now, without consultation with Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, he had to do that. And if you look at where all these face-offs happened, the LAPD was in control. In fact, how ridiculous they have the LAPD, and then they have the National Guard standing behind the LAPD. It's like, remove the National Guard. Let the locals handle the situation. All Donald Trump did by sending in the Guard was to inflame this. All right, that was yesterday. Now today, instead of trying to make people safe, he inflames the situation more. Because Pete Hegseth, the idea of sending Marines, well, now the reports are now saying that the Marines are not just preparing to be deployed, but they are about to be deployed. Don't know when. 29 Palms or Camp Pendleton, not far away from LA. But it's going to happen. It doesn't have to happen, but it's happening. So a combination of the Marines, the National Guard, and for what reason? The Marines, because of the Posse Comitatus Act of, I think, 1876, says you can't use military in a law enforcement situation. In a local law enforcement situation, you can't use it. You can't use the military against Americans. And the only way, so it's unclear what the Marines are going to do except be ornaments of danger, ornaments to induce fear, ornaments to make sure you don't cross the line, ornaments to make sure that you don't realize or forget that you're American. And what that means is Americans stand up, speak out, have a right to protest peacefully, non-violently. They have a right to protest and speak out. They have a right to show support for Gavin Newsom, California, for being an American. So it's unclear what the Marines are there for, except to induce fear, except to make you forget you're in America, except to make you understand that this is where the evolution of Trump is going. It's going toward an American-style authoritarianism that no one should ignore. No one should ignore this. And there's going to be no kings marches. I said three kings. That's a holiday version. No king marches throughout the nation on Saturday, the 14th, when they have that big military parade. And I would suggest you Google No Kings, find out where a No Kings march is near you. They're all over the country. They're less ad hoc than you think, but I think more people need to know about this so they know that, hey, if you want to go out in the street, as is your right, your First Amendment right, you do that on the 14th, because Trump is using this show of force in advance of June 14th, Flag Day, which is also the anniversary, I think, the military's birthday, the Army's birthday, also his birthday, Trump's birthday, ironically. Show of force. And people need to be a counterpoint, because the show of force is a grab for power. That's what we're seeing this week, starting from this past weekend to next weekend, a grab for power. And I just think it's ridiculous that anyone thought that if you send in the National Guard, you're going to get peace. No, didn't happen. In fact, it incited a situation, made it bigger. One day, or yesterday, Sunday, was the third day. Now we're into Monday, the fourth day. And just because Donald Trump likes to fan the flames, he's sending in the Marines. Here's the thing about sending in the Marines. Pete Hegseth, Mr. Not a Guardrail. Yeah, he is sending in the Marines. He sort of like broached it, like I said, over the weekend. But it was sort of wait and see. But he was not standing in the way of Donald Trump. The first Trump administration, people stood in the way, and I'm talking about Mark Esper. Mark Esper, who, former Department of Defense, my God, he wrote a book in 2021. He said that his goal was to stop Trump from using the military against Americans in the day before, the day of, and the days after the election. So Trump has had this idea in mind. Esper was the guy who tried to talk Trump out of using the Insurrection Act in June 2020. And you'll recall the Insurrection Act is the act that allows the exception to posse comitatus, the Posse Comitatus Act. I talked about that just a second ago. It bars, the Posse Comitatus Act, bars federal troops from engaging in domestic law enforcement operations. But if there is a domestic insurrection, the president is allowed to deploy forces inside the U.S. if it's beyond the capabilities of regular law enforcement. So this is going to be the play. And of course, what did Trump do today in several exchanges with the media except to say, insurrection, it's an insurrection, it's an insurrection, it's an insurrection. Hey, look, Filipinos know insurrection. In 1899, the Filipinos started their own government and they rebelled. They fought against the U.S., who bought the Philippines and colonized it. They bought it from Spain, colonized it, and they were out to make sure that, hey, we bought you guys. Philippines revolted. The American bias called the Filipinos insurrectionists. They were just standing up for democracy. That's in the U.S.-Philippines War that probably no one remembers. It was the real war after the sham war of the Spanish-American War. Sham war because they were able to trade parts, trade countries. You know, you take the Philippines, you take Cuba, they were able to do that, but Filipinos said no, and they fought a war. A million people died. No one knows that. Now you do. Those were the insurrectionists. And the Filipinos, they lost 1902, but they know what a real insurrectionist is. Those weren't insurrectionists at the different sites in LA. Oh, they were burning Waymos. Well, Waymos they got in the way. I mean, essentially what we had a celebration like they do in big cities after a team wins the World Series or something. They even had that in San Francisco. You wouldn't call out the National Guard for that. Just wouldn't. But that's sort of what it was about here. What this is about is Donald Trump wants to pass that big, beautiful bill that'll raise the national debt. And he wants to do it using the xenophobic fear of immigrants to get people to say, yeah, we hate those immigrants. They're taking over the country. That's how he's doing it. I mean, that really is what's going on. The xenophobia of, they're taking over our country. You don't want these illegal immigrants here. That's what's making people nod their heads and say, yeah, whatever you want, Trump, whatever you want. And yet, It's wrong. And thank goodness for California Attorney General Rob Bonta. California Attorney General Rob Bonta, he California sued the Trump administration today over its deployment of those 2,000 National Guard troops. And according to the Washington Post, it's a move with little precedent that has dramatically increased tensions between the federal government and America's largest Democratic-led state. Not only is it the world's largest Democratic-led state, but it's also the fourth largest economy in the world. The fourth largest economy in the world. You know, you would think that maybe Donald Trump would just want to get along with Asian Americans and other people who are part of this large economy. But no, he's threatening us. The lawsuit argues that Trump overstepped his authority when he called up the National Guard in defiance of California Governor Gavin Newsom, invoking a law that allows the president to do so under threat from foreign invasion or rebellion against the U.S. Said Bonta, let me be clear, there is no invasion, there is no rebellion. The president is trying to manufacture chaos and crisis on the ground for his own political ends. And that really is it. Now, they're calling it the first time, the deployment of the National Guard. They're saying the first time in 60 years that an American president has made a decision without a governor's consent. I think you can go back to the 60s in Lyndon Johnson, but federal troops were deployed by Bush, George H.W. Bush, the dad, in 1992. That's like 30-some years, 33 years. But maybe the difference is the governor back then allowed it to happen, and this is, you need government. You need the locals, the state and locals, to write off on all this. Trump didn't do that. So we have a lawsuit. This is the way to fight Trump. But it still enables him to do his thing until the courts decide. But this is the rule of law. It's not the rule of one man. It's not the rule of a dictator. I mean, I think we ought to call it it's a dictatorial move. It's not a king move. A king is beloved, wants total authority, but is generally beloved. A dictator is someone who is kind of nasty and wants the power and will use his power on people. Dictator. A king doesn't use his power. A king just says, "Hey, I got the power. I'm regal by bloodlines. I've got better blood than you. That's my kingly authority." We don't have a king in America, but we might be developing a junior dictator. Filipinos who remember Ferdinand Marcos might say Marcos light. I heard someone say Putin light. Donald Trump wants to be Putin light. Maybe Putin, dictator. People see what he's capable of doing, taking down Navalny, taking down all his opponents. And this leads me to the other aspect, the other thing that happened today. Started yesterday. MSNBC did an interview with Newsom because Tom Homan, the immigration czar, said, "Hey, we might have to arrest Gavin Newsom." And Newsom said, go ahead. And Newsom said he cared more about Californians, didn't care about him. Trump was asked about that. Trump said, hey, look, Gavin Newsom's a nice guy, but he can use the publicity. That's the kind of leader Trump is. Not very serious. And he has the upper hand because he has the power. But if he can do this to a political opponent, we're not a democracy anymore. So I would hope that we, as Americans, every one of us, will notice that. Take a step back, look at all that's happened. I mean, when I heard Donald Trump say, yeah, Tom Homan should arrest Gavin Newsom, and Gavin Newsom responded in Twitter saying, well, this sounds like authoritarianism to me. When a sitting president advocates the jailing of an opponent, that's where this is going. And I've been covering the news a long time. This is like when I covered the news in the Philippines in '83, when Benigno Aquino, who was in exile, maybe he was in exile, went back, and then was assassinated. I felt the kind of danger in democracy. I mean, I don't know how you can listen to the facts I've been talking about today and not feel the danger inherent just because of the escalation of things. Anyway, I felt that in the Philippines. In the Philippines, you can feel. In America, I don't feel that at all. Except now, I'm starting to feel that. What happens when you have the guardrails off? No Mark Esper saying, no, you can't do that, Mr. President. And instead you have Pete Hegseth saying, you want Marines? We'll get you Marines. Remember, Hegseth is a guy who said, you want DEI out of all the military stuff? We'll get it out for you, Mr. President. And, maybe Donald Trump will trade in the blue suit and the red tie for a military uniform. We'll have to call him Generalissimo. Well, he's commander-in-chief. He said, well, I better put on a commander-in-chief uniform. I think that could happen. I mean, everyone's saying yes, no one's saying no. The Attorney General, Rob Bonta, is suing. California is suing. But not sure where this is going to lead, because we've got the military, we've got the Marines heading toward LA. And that is a bad sign. I mean, Esper was able to talk Trump out of it the first time, but Trump really wanted to move 1,600 active duty soldiers. Remember those protests, the Rodney King protests, 2020? I mean, I remember covering that from afar. You wouldn't say that all of Washington, D.C. was burning down, but that area. So it's ridiculous to say that. Oh, by the way, Esper, they wanted to invoke that Insurrection Act. Esper talked him out of it. So I just think that we're in this scary position now. And the only thing that will save us is if we are, as Americans, watch this news and then participate. The easy way is call your congressman and say yay or nay. Yeah, I like this America. Or no, nay, I don't like this America. What is happening to my country? What is happening to the America I know and love? and know that when you hear Donald Trump talk, everything is, hey, I'm doing it to save our country from those illegals. Those illegals. I got to do illegal things sometimes. I got to do illegal things sometimes to save us from those illegals. Someone's going to do it. Might as well be me. I mean, that's the kind of situation we're in where Donald Trump shouldn't be able to do that, but he does. He wasn't able to because there were some good Americans who knew the Constitution, and they weren't concerned about power grab. This is a power grab. Trump wants the power. What's he going to do to Gavin Newsom? This is serious, serious stuff. And remember, the Constitution gives us our First Amendment right, our freedom of speech. God, over the weekend, they had the Edward R. Murrow, George Clooney play. They had it on CNN. They had journalists gathered to say, what's going on? What's the real fear? Well, the real fear is that the journalists who are being muzzled or they have a kind of a dark cloud over them. It's a corporate dark cloud, and it's because the dark cloud is induced by Donald Trump, who has the power to allow for these corporates to have the business mergers or whatever that they want. Trump wants support. Things will fly through if there's support. Sounds like a quid pro quo, right? Sounds like, hey, the corporates they are being intimidated to go along with the bribe type of democracy that we have now. Because Donald Trump is in charge of the rule of law, and the rule of law, in his mind, means nothing. And if you go over his background as a landlord, as a person who would dishonor contracts, kick people out, not pay his bills, make you sue him, then he pays at a discount because you settle or you end up losing the suit, or he ends up, I don't think he lost a whole lot of those, but it's his tactic. He's using it in government. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. So I don't know. I don't know what's next. We witness. Tell your representatives. It's a representative government. Tell them what you think, why it's wrong, why it's not wrong. Tell me you like it. If that's, hey, if you like this, then I'm just another American like you. We can discuss peacefully. But if you choose to take an opposite side, I accept your right, just like you accept my right to speak out. So, but we'll see how it plays out, because Donald Trump wasn't voted by a landslide, not nationally. He won the Electoral College, but he did not win a majority of American voters. He got a plurality, like a small plurality, less than a few percentage points. He did win the Electoral College, which, if you want to talk about rigging, that's a rigged system. Actually intended to give equal power to the smaller states, but you don't win the popular vote. It's not a landslide. So let's see what happens. This is the big week, the 14th, Flag Day, the military anniversary, I think is the Army, Donald Trump's birthday. Maybe he comes out in a Generalissimo outfit, says, hey, here I am. Just call me Generalissimo. Who knows what'll happen between now and Saturday, but the military is there, or soon approaching. Not a good sign. And it's unclear what are they going to do? What is the military going to do? Because of the Posse Comitatus Act, they can't really do anything against America unless the Insurrection Act is invoked. Unclear if that has been or will be. Trump used another law and to enable him to get the 2,000, but still considered a breach of what should be the governor's right. Now, this just came in. RFK Jr. removes all current members of CDC Vaccine Advisory Committee. So this is the cue for everyone in the Trump administration. Do your most damnedest thing now, because no one will be paying attention. And here is the latest. Marines being mobilized for LA protests as California vows to sue administration. Roughly 700 Marines based out of the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center in California mobilized to respond to the protest. Why? What are they going to do? We're going to stand here like big life-size G.I. Joes to scare the hell out of people. And, some people will be scared and some people will say, this is the hill I die on. And then it will be used by Trump as an excuse to do whatever he wants. So I say, protest, peaceful protest, but be careful. Don't be used by Donald Trump, because he wants to use you if you can. He wants to use you if you can, and he will. He's already using immigrants to justify illegal immigrants, to justify all his actions, all his policy. And not only that, he gets some innocent people in there. It's not just immigrants, right? It's not just undocumented. There's some people, he'll catch the criminals, a handful. There are not as many. There are a lot of visa overstays. That's not a criminal act. It's not in the criminal courts. The immigration courts are different. But he proves his point in that he gets people out. People don't care. People are always watching with half a heart, half a mind. They're taking care of their own lives. They're saying, hey, that doesn't, if it's irrelevant to their lives, they don't know how relevant it is, but they just back off and say, I'm not playing a part. But I think it's time to go out in the streets. There's that No Kings rallies across the country, because they need to see that people aren't going to take it. Peaceful protests. You can send a letter to Trump. I don't think he'd read it. He wouldn't know how. Send him a voicemail. He might listen to it. Or, go on Truth Social and say, Mr. President, I think you're wrong. Let him know that. He's our president too. So he shouldn't just assume that everyone likes his ideas, because many people don't. Anyway, it's a somber time Summer's here. You should be having fun, but I have to admit, it's not fun. Not fun. Uh, still, I am going to be in Sacramento at the World Series of Comedy. You say, Emil, you're a comedian too? You sounded pretty somber there. You sounded so somber. I don't laugh riot. This little thing you got here, Emil. Laugh riot. Laugh a second. Well, I mean, the one thing I will say is I'm a news guy who does comedy versus the comedians who do news, like Jon Stewart, John Oliver, Bill Maher. I mean, they're just comedians. I'm a news guy who does comedy. So you'll get the punchline and maybe you'll learn something. I don't know. June 11th, Wednesday, I'll be there at Laughs Unlimited. Just a short set. It's competition. If I get through Wednesday, the 11th at 7 p.m., then I'll be on throughout the weekend. But check it out. You got to see me on the 11th. Laughs Unlimited. Go to the website, VIPtickethub.com/unlimited tickets. VIPtickethub.com/unlimited tickets. And then put down the July 11th show. Use the code GIVE, GIVE. Say Emil Amok sent you. And then you'll get discounted tickets and you can go to that Wednesday show and any other show. And there might be a thing saying, hey, I'm not near Sacramento and I like Emil, but I'm not going to drive to Sacramento for him. Then there might be something to say where to get a live stream. So check that out. That's it for our show today. I have to say I was very excited for Nicole Scherzinger, who described herself as a Ukrainian Filipino-Hawaiian or a Filipino-Ukrainian Hawaiian. That would be an FUH, a pho. She was a pho. And Darren Criss, Filipino-American, all these half Filipinos getting the full award. Did they get half Tonys? But it was really very nice, I thought, that usually when you talk about Filipinos on Broadway, you point to Lea Salonga. People know Lea Salonga. Great voice. That's the thing. Broadway's for singers. Broadway isn't for talkers. Broadway isn't for actors. But if you're a singer, watch out. Dancer, maybe. Francis Chu, also for Yellowface, won an acting award. So Asian Americans and Filipinos in particular won the big awards. Nicole Scherzinger. She was on American Idol for a little bit. Not as a judge, I think. Not as a contestant. Early years. And she was also Pussycat Dolls. So, my kind of woman. Congratulations to Nicole. I saw a real interesting television piece between Nicole Scherzinger and Christine Johnson, who is a New York City CBS anchor. Big time. Big. And she's half Filipino. And she looks similar, except she's from Jersey, I think. But it was nice. It was nice to see her interview Nicole Scherzinger. And it was, boy, if you had a name like Scherzinger, you got to stop and say, I got to get that Z in there, Scherzinger. But, yeah, congratulations to Nicole. Sunset Boulevard. That's the name of the musical. All these Andrew Lloyd Webber. Filipinos. And, I had my foray, not on Broadway, off Broadway. I was in the Fringe. So it was just good to see Nicole and Darren Criss win big at the Tonys. Not that anyone outside of New York really cares about them, but they do. They don't, but they do. but they don't. They should, but it's live theater. All right, check me out. WSOC, the World Series of Comedy, June 11th. See, the way the World Series of Comedy works is there are all these little satellites around all the cities, and then they take the top 3 and they go to Vegas, and then they do their thing. And then they have a big competition. They have one winner, and who gets the booby prize. It's a good way to get your comic workout. I enjoy doing it. Check it out. June 11th, 7 p.m. Get your tickets. Code is GIVE, G-I-V-E. Say Emil Amok sent you. Go to the website, VIPtickethub.com/unlimited tickets, VIPtickethub.com. And that will get you your tickets. All right, that's it for the show today. I'd like to keep these things. I've gone long enough, but I made my points early. Gavin Newsom. Good luck to Gavin Newsom. I don't know. Do you think he's going to get arrested? I hope he doesn't. But Trump was like really saying, I hope Tom Homan, I hope Tom arrests him. Gavin likes publicity. It would be publicity. But this is not the baloney kind of politics. I mean, this is like Apprentice TV show, reality show politics that Trump is playing. We need serious discussion about what's going on. And we're not getting it from Trump. We're getting half-truths. You tell me, was there a better way to begin the raids of, if you wanted to pick up people who are criminals, is there a better way to do it than going in to terrorize workplaces? Except you get the residual benefit of scaring the hell out of people. And that's what Donald Trump wants to do because he's Mr. Mean. Mr. Mean. All right. That's it for our show. Thank you for joining me. Back again, maybe tomorrow. Maybe. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Stuff happens. We leave you with a little loving kindness meditation because I love everyone. Even well, it's very Christian if I say I love Donald Trump. Very Christian. You gotta love your enemies. He's not my enemy, but he's doing some things that real, honest, ethical, Christian human beings, would have a problem with. Got a problem with it. The events of this past weekend. Got a problem with it. So we do this loving kindness meditation. So as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Kita.